Zimbabwe ruling party ZANU-PF says it is willing to help its counterpart, South Africa's ruling party, the African National Congress, to push for votes in the upcoming elections. Now speaking to the media, ZANU-PF Secretary General Obert Mpofu said they have also been invited to be a part of observer missions during the election on the 29th of May. ZANU-PF says it hopes the election in South Africa will be conducted following SADC rules. South Africa will be going to the polls on the 29th of May 2024. Joining me on the news to discuss this is Dr. Webster Zambara from the Institute for Justice and Reconciliation. Hello, Doctor. Thank you so much for joining us at this time.
Greetings and greetings to your viewers. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. All right, so how do you interpret the decision of the ANC to invite ZANU-PF to be a part of the observer mission in the upcoming election, despite Zimbabwe's history of not holding fair and free elections?
Well, the relations between the African National Congress and ZANU-PF go as far back as the liberation struggle. And I think one should be aware of the fact that in Southern Africa, the liberation movement parties actually have got a certain relationship which is formal, in which they respect each other, they support each other, and this is beyond just ANC and ZANU-PF. It includes Frelimo of Mozambique, it includes SWAPO of Namibia, it also includes Chama Pinduzi in Tanzania, and UNIP in Zambia. Of these, only UNIP in Zambia has lost power, and that has actually brought them more together to the effect that they help each other almost every time. In fact, ANC is the oldest political party on the continent, and parties like ZANU-PF are actually offshoots of ANC. Now look at it. Zimbabwe had elections that were marred by irregularities only in August. But if you look at the reaction of the African National Congress to that, it was one of the first institutions and governments to congratulate ZANU-PF. And if you look at the inauguration of President Mnangagwa, South Africa had the most powerful delegation comprising of President Ramaphosa, Minister of Foreign Affairs Naledi Pandor, and the ANC leadership, including Secretary General Fikile Mbalula. And they openly declared that their support is with ZANU-PF. So now that elections are coming in 20 days here, and the ANC, having been in power for 30 years since 1994, is facing serious challenges, not only from the opposition, but from other offshoots from itself. And it is getting support, obviously, from its sister parties, including ZANU-PF. So this is not a surprise at all, and should be read in the face of liberation movements supporting each other, and it has been happening over the years.
Okay. Now, but what message does it send, when a party like ZANU-PF, known for allegedly stealing elections, is being asked to help monitor the electoral process in another country?
Well, I think in cases of desperation, parties like ANC would want support from anyone. And the issue of ZANU-PF's legitimacy, even if one would question it, as long as the Southern African Development Community accepted the elections results and Mnangagwa is the sitting president, they would look at it as inviting a legitimately elected government and a sister liberation party. One would look at it also perhaps historically. When President Mugabe, the late Mugabe, was rigging elections in 2008, President Mbeki, then president of South Africa, went on to, in fact, deny when the United Nations Security Council was putting Zimbabwe on the agenda, South Africa stood firm and said there's no crisis in Zimbabwe, but we all know that there was a crisis. So this relationship is one that sometimes is, if need be, seems to look aside when you look
yes,
at...
all right. So talking about the relationship, Doctor, how do you see the relationship between the ANC and ZANU-PF evolving as a result of this decision, and what implications might it have for future elections in both countries?
That is probably the biggest question in terms of how the ANC is going to conduct itself, because if it conducts itself in the way that ZANU-PF does elections across the Limpopo River, the ANC risks the reputation that South Africa has as a doyen of democracy, as a leader of democracy, not only in Southern Africa, but in Africa as a whole. So we want to see with curiosity what role ZANU-PF involvement would entail. Because some of these things, the institutions in South Africa, including the Electoral Commission in South Africa and many other institutions, are so solid that the influence of ZANU-PF will be very minimal, if anything. However, like I said before, these are sister parties that look at themselves as under attack, often looking at themselves as fighting regime change agenda and looking at themselves as having to defend the liberation struggle, winning the liberation struggle against colonialism and apartheid. But mark my words, I do not think that ZANU-PF will be a big determinant, because South Africa's democracy is so institutionalized that a foreign party like ZANU-PF will have very little in terms of influencing the outcome of the vote.
All right, now, Doctor, just before we go quickly, considering that many Zimbabweans have fled their country to seek economic opportunities in South Africa due to hardships, caused by the ZANU-PF regime, even though you said it won't be a major determinant in the South African elections, how might this decision impact the perceptions of Zimbabweans living in South Africa?
Well, considering that issues of xenophobic violence are quite prevalent, and some smaller political parties are actually campaigning against foreigners, especially not those that are not registered or regularized. They are parties like, I can cite the party led by the former mayor of Joburg, who campaigns Action South Africa, as well as the other party led by this former mayor also of a small town here in Western Cape. Those parties are quite strict in terms of saying foreigners must go away. Now, if they see a foreign political party which is implicated in messing up Zimbabwe politically and economically to the effect that Zimbabwe is going to come to South Africa, they will then have a locus standi to say Zimbabweans should still go away because of the interference now coming politically. Already, the relations are quite frosty when it comes to xenophobia targeting Zimbabweans. So it's not something that the ANC should be proud of, to be inviting ZANU-PF in the political processes in South Africa, in the face of tensions that exist regarding Zimbabweans who are living in South Africa against some sections of society that are quite xenophobic and would like to see Zimbabweans going back home.
All right, well, thank you so much, Doctor, for joining us and taking time to speak to us on this. Thank you.
Thanks for having me again.